Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Autism Our Story podcast. Today, I have the opportunity to interview Caroline Coleman. She is Kyle Coleman's mom. They were both featured on the Telepathy Tapes. Kyle Coleman is an autistic young man who is non-speaking. And although he's a non-speaker, he's able to communicate through singing. Kyle also communicates with his mother through vivid dreams. And in these dreams, he's able to give her lyrics and melodies to his beautiful music that he uses to spread awareness about autism and about his experience as a non-speaker. Caroline, I'm so excited to be able to chat with you today. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and we're going to start from there.
Hi, Nicole, and thank you firstly for having me. It's been a really interesting ride since the Telepathy Tapes come out. So, just thank you for giving me an opportunity to, speak about our journey.
Yes.
My name is Caroline Coleman. I have a son called Kyle, who is 38 now. He still lives with me at home, and we have, lovely people coming and help support me, care for him at home, and all the things that he does, all the wonderful, rich things he does. He gets lots of support for that. I just I've been on this journey for 38 years, so I've got lots of experiences to share.
Yes.
Some are, highs and lows, but more highs than lows for sure. So yes, thank you again for allowing me to come on your show and to share that with other mums and dads and caregivers that have a similar story, perhaps, and they can sort of recognize, and it echoes their own journey.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for doing this. I just really was inspired by your story, and I really know that it will help others that might be going through what you're going through feel seen, not feel so alone, because of the nature of it's something that is not as common, even though there are a lot of people out there experiencing it. So I just know that it will really help them feel seen. So I wanted to start from kind of the beginning. Can you please tell us a little bit about how you found out that Kyle was autistic? So a little bit about the beginning of your journey.
Yeah. Well, we were in the armed forces and stationed in Germany. So, that was 38 years ago. And Kyle has an older brother, and he has a younger sister. So they had a very young family, three children, all under the age of, I think, 6, maybe 6.5. So life was busy and full, and I didn't always catch, what was going on, other than Kyle seemed in the beginning a very fit and healthy baby. It was a non-complicated birth. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing there that would have caused concern. And he was doing all the things at the right time, hitting all his milestones. I suppose it was when he got to about 12, maybe 13 months old, when I started noticing he became much more distant, and I didn't get the eye contact that I was getting. He did have some words. He was saying mama, dada, sort of bye-bye, mimicking that type of thing. Could point to a cat and a dog in a little picture book and that type of thing.
Okay.
And so he had all those. He started developing those, and he walked early. He seemed very agile. In fact, he was so agile. All I did was run around after him. Yeah. But I kind of thought, oh, he's quite advanced, and he's kind of seems to be at least a couple of months ahead of his kind of developmental stages. So yes. I didn't think anything was afoot really then. It was only when he stopped looking at me and was avoiding eye contact, which was the first phase. I called it, there was 3 phases to it, really. Mm-hmm. The first phase was the lack of eye contact. The second phase was not wanting to be picked up or cuddled or, touched. And the third phase was screaming for about 3 days solid. And then after that, it was like somebody had got one of those dimmer switches, and just turned the switch from bright to dark.
Yeah.
And that was it. He was kind of gone. he was there, he was physically there, but emotionally, he just seemed like he was somewhere else. So first of all, I thought it was a virus. So I took him to the doctors, and the doctor said, yes, I'm inclined to agree with you that it looks like it could be a virus. We'll see. Or it could just be the start of the terrible twos, you know,
Yeah.
it could be just behavioural. And I was just like, yeah, but, you know, I have an older son who, you know, he can be quite challenging at times and has the terrible twos, but it wasn't like this, you know. So anyway, so I took him home. It wasn't getting any better. He wasn't eating. He would only eat certain things, normally things that were dry and beige. I'm sure you know the story of that one.
Yes.
And or like strawberry yogurt, and it was just, there was about 5 things that he'd eat, and everything else he would just repel and scream. You know, he'd scream through the night, and I don't know what I was thinking at that stage, Nicole. I think I spoke to my mum on the phone. You know, she was over in the UK and I was still in Germany, and I was like, Mum, you know, do you know what this is? And she said, no, I don't. She said, but I've always thought, when even when she saw him as a baby, she said, he looks right through you. He doesn't really look at you. I never really saw it, but my mum always thought there was something that she, you know, she couldn't quite explain or feel, but it was a felt thing rather than anything she could explain. Anyway, so I didn't let it rest there. I went back to the doctors. I said, no, this explanation isn't good enough. And at the time, I had a really nice neighbour who's, I think it was her niece, had just been diagnosed with autism. And she said, I hope you don't mind me saying, Caroline, but have you thought that Carl could be autistic? And I said, well, the only thing I know about autism is The Rain Man. And I'd not long watched that with Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise at the time. And I was like, oh, you know, I don't think he's like that at all. Anyway, so took him back to the doctors, and I basically demanded that he get to see a specialist. And then when we went to see a specialist in the army, and the doctor didn't disagree with anything that I was saying. He said, I think you are right, Caroline. I don't know at this stage, you know, the level or the severity of Kyle's autism, but we are all agreeing, you know, the body of people that decide these things were all agreeing that was probably the route that we'd going down in terms of a diagnosis. So Kyle was diagnosed with classic autism. They don't give this diagnosis anymore because it was tell a lie, it was 36 years ago, because he was 2 when he was diagnosed. With a pervasive developmental disorder, and and non-verbal, you know. And he said, and I remember just sitting there, you know, hearing this diagnosis, this box that they were building, and they put this lid on, and they said he will never lead a normal life. He will always need, you know, care. And he will probably never really develop anything, you know, other than a mental age of about 6. So, and I was just, and just something in the pit of my stomach, you know, my instincts, my mother's intuition was like, no, I'm not going to let that be something, a label, or, you know,
that defines him.
Yeah, an identity that we're going to live with for the rest of our lives. And I think in a way it was good that he did give us that, because it made me fight, and it made me go, no, you're not going to put a lid. You've put him in a box, but you're not going to put the lid on. And it made me seek and search and be on this crusade that I have been on for 38 years, that I knew that the moment I had Kyle, you know, when we was in the delivery, you know, room and holding him, I kind of just knew that we were going to take a very different journey in life. And we still are, you know, we still are on our journey. It unfolds every day into something new. And I learned something from Kyle every day. You know, he teaches me something about myself every day. And he shows me how extraordinary he is in so many ways. So that's how it started.
Wonderful. Yeah. I just like the part that you said that they agreed with you. I don't think a lot of autism parents or moms encounter that. We all have to fight to even get the doctors to agree with us to say we're seeing something, to just feel validated in what we feel as mothers that something is not right. But yeah, I do agree with you that it shouldn't define our children. Don't I like how you gave the example of them putting a lid on and just fighting for that. I love that.
Mm.
Yeah, our children are much more than that. Even before
Yeah,
we find out, we just know as parents that they're just more than what they're telling us. All
yeah.
the limitations they put on them to say that they will never do certain things.
I was very fortunate in some ways that I didn't have to fight that side of things, because I know that when we came back from Germany, and we resided in the UK, a lot of parents that were in the beginning stages, as I was, they said, "Oh, you've already got a diagnosis and you've already got an educational statement." I was like, "Well, yeah, I got all of that. I brought it all back from Germany with me, so I could get him straight into a school, which was a very good school. I'm going to say he was well taught.
Yeah.
He was exposed to a thing called Teach. I guess it still is something now. It came from the States, if I remember rightly. It was being piloted over in Hampshire, where I was living,
Okay.
and
What is it called?
it's called Teach. It's an acronym for something, and certain schools in the south of England were trying it out, like piloting it in our schools. And luckily enough, the school that Kyle was going to, had access to it. He was one of the first pupils actually in the UK to have access to this Teach program, which it was really good for him, because it meant that he could work in a workstation. He could totally focus in on, learning to read and write and, master using a pencil and all that type of thing, maths and things. And he did really like learning, and he still does really like learning. You give Kyle a task and he will analyze it, or he'll look at it first and he'll think, not sure. But if he really likes it, he will work it out how to do it. And I think that came from those early years of education. So, I know, I don't want to, say education wasn't a good thing for him, because I do believe it really did help him. But there was, that was half of his needs were met. The other half was this other, types of communication, types of feeling and intuitive kind of orientation that wasn't being met, which was, I guess, our job as a mum and as parents. But also, he was showing, he loved being in nature when he was young. He loved swimming, and he loved that sense of being free and exploring, but in his own unique way, which always came over to the onlooker as being a bit strange. When Kyle had bundles of leaves and he was sort of throwing them up in the air, and or he would like tip buckets of water over himself, and or he would bury himself in some sand on the beach. So people would just be like, wow, what's going on there? But it would be Kyle having a fully immersive experience in something.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think, so I kind of I think that was me knowing that he's doing something.
Yes.
It's not like irrational behavior, or it's unsafe behavior, or it's not normal behavior. He was exploring his sensory, field, or his, he was exploring the world through his body in a very, immersive, sensorial way, which, his other children perhaps didn't do it so in such an extreme way. I mean, all kids like to put their Wellington boots on and splash in puddles, but Kyle would be in the puddle, sort of thing, So it was like he was always extra, So, and I'd be like, wow, something's going on there, and it was almost like I was trying to join him to understand it, but felt as a mother, am I being irresponsible, letting him do all these extreme things? The other kids weren't doing them, and saying that a few of the kids at Kyle's school was, but other children, and my other 2 children didn't do those type of things to that level. So you're trying to kind of find a footing in the early days of, what can you let your child, what is right to let your child do? Is it appropriate that your child wants to lay in a puddle where the other kids are quite happy just splashing through? And so yeah, it was perplexing to say the least. But I kind of let, my mum used to say, all this free expression, Caroline, I'm not quite sure where it's going to lead you. And I was like, well, Mum, I just feel it's right for him to do that, as long as he's not in danger, or not going to drown or something. Yes. So I did used to let him just explore, because I knew that was his way of understanding his environment.
Yes.
And that was our very early days, Nicole. That was me just observing and making judgment calls through feeling.
Yeah.
And sensing, and that was probably, right up till about the age of, until he was about 8 or 9, perhaps. So I didn't get anything sort of, really telepathic. I just sort of knew what I was doing was the right thing, to let him develop and explore through, through these immersive experiences that he loved. He loved, that was his thing. And the sort of body regulation, he walked on his tiptoes and jumped up and down and did lots of stimming. And I just always took that as some kind of way of regulating or steadying his vestibular nervous system, or some way of just soothing himself. And I didn't interfere with that either. I never said, don't do that, or, that looks odd. It was like, well, somehow it's a kind of a way of, it's a natural way, a kind of innate, instinctive way that he would do these things. And he still does sometimes, not it's very rare these days, but, a way of self-soothing, which I didn't understand, which I couldn't meet him in. So he was working it out himself. I mean, in a way, our children and our non-speaking individuals are highly resourceful.
Yeah.
And they can almost, there's a knowing inside of them, in their all-encompassing being, that they do know what to do to help regulate themselves. We're not teaching them to rock. We might rock them as babies. They're kind of going, this is what I need to do for my body to level out again, or for my nervous system to calm, or, for the hormones in my body, the happy hormones to release and settle me in again, back into my body. So I would let him just express himself without interfering, which has always been my port of call with Kyle. I've never really interfered unless he looks like he's going to hurt himself. I've let him just travel through whatever it is. He always comes out the other side. And I found the less I reacted in my own body, and the less stressed and anxious and reactive I became, the quicker he would pass through.
Wow, that's amazing.
So it was about self-regulating me inside myself, that then somehow permeated and sent a wave of something out to Kyle, and he would go almost like, well, okay, Mum's okay, so I'm okay now. So there is an awful lot of interaction in this, in our very close relationships. It's called the relational field in therapy and in other sort of therapeutic approaches. So you get into this relational field, and you might not know what it is. You could call it telepathic, you could call it intuitive, you could call it psychic, but there is a relational exchange of energy and awareness that happens between two people. And I think that's what we harness with our children, and we're harnessing it every day. We're kind of fortifying it and really mastering and tempering it. And we don't even know what we're doing half the time. It's just a natural thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that is something that after listening to the telepathy tapes and being more aware of these things, I'm learning that I've been doing that all along, and now I feel like I am doing it knowingly. I don't know if
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, absolutely. You have an awareness of yourself. So
Yes.
it's when you become self-aware of, it's almost like you become your own observer. And the
Mm-hmm.
more you're observing yourself, the more you are opening the field to perceive where where our children are.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Kyle he will only meet me halfway. He won't come totally into my world and go, "Hey, mum," unless when we're dreaming together and I
Yeah.
have a dream of him, he will then come in and go, "Mum, we're dreaming. I want you to wake up in this dream.
Yeah.
Wake up and do something very odd in the
Yeah.
dream," because I'm like, "Oh, why has he got like a pink umbrella?" Or,
Yeah.
why is he wearing a green hat with pink spots? Or,
Yeah.
he'll be doing something very odd in the dream, which
Yeah.
he is not of our normal day organization, or what we have. They're not objects in our house that we have. And I'm like, why has he got, why is he wearing a top hat? Or,
Yeah.
why has he got some, I don't know, sign in his hand, or whatever it is. There'd be some indication that he'll give me in a dream to say, "Mum, wake up. I want you to be fully aware in this dream now." So
Yeah.
that didn't come till a bit later when he was in his teens. But
Okay.
in the early years, it
Yeah.
was about me learning how to self-regulate, how to be calm, how to just not judge what he was doing, but observe it. And that somehow started to temper and, organize some level of awareness between us. The more I got out of story, out of what I think it should have been, but, rather than just let it be what it needs to be,
Mm-hmm.
the more my awareness, I guess, started to expand. And I I call it, I came out of the first field or the first bandwidth. That's what I call everyday stuff. And
Yeah.
then I would get into this second bandwidth, which Kyle was kind of more residing there in his consciousness. And he was like, "Oh, now you're here. Now
Yeah.
you're empty enough to be here
Yeah.
now." And it was like, and then he would then I would be always, "Oh, crumbs, I'm aware that Kyle's here,
Yeah.
aware that I'm here." And
Yes.
that is when, then I know that we've made a sort of connection beyond conventional language, and we're actually in we're in more of the telepathic field, or the non-verbal field, or the non-speaking field,
Yes.
whatever happens in this other wider space of understanding another person. And I think we all do that, Nicole. I think
Yes.
it's not just what we have with our children. We just do a lot of it because we've got them 24 hours a day, 365 days of a year. So of
Yeah.
course we're tempering and honing and practicing that every day.
Yeah.
If you want to learn how to be intuitive or instinctive and telepathic, whatever you want to call it, be with
Mhm.
somebody 24 hours a day that doesn't
You
speak.
do. Yes,
And
exactly.
you have to start tapping into a faculty that you've not tapped into before.
Yeah.
And you do
Absolutely.
it for 38 years, or however long other parents have been doing it. I do it by choice. I want to be with Kyle and learn more about him as a person,
Yeah.
and what he shares. Then I do relinquish it over to other people at times, because he does have other people, that practitioners, that work with him. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like every day I learn something, with him. And yeah, when you're with somebody that's non-speaking for 38 years, I wouldn't be, of course I'm going to learn how to
Yeah.
use my intuition.
Yes.
What have I been doing for
That's
38
all you,
years?
yes. That's all
Yeah,
you have left, and that's your only way to communicate, to connect with him.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll learn something. So yeah, I wanted to ask, so how old was he then when he first made that or established that connection through vivid
Yes,
dreams?
I think, he was kind of about 11 or 12. I mean, he
Okay.
was just sort of coming into his adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely would have it, I think, prior to that. But I think there was something in me that started to believing it.
Okay.
So it was like, yeah, we do. there is this sort of dreaming telepathy, or these dream conversations. And then the first time I went lucid, in lucid dreaming, when you know you're dreaming, so you know you're laying in your bed, you go into a dream and you're dreaming away, then all of a sudden something happens, like you might go through a doorway or get handed an object, as it was with Kylie, handed me an object.
Okay.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, hang on a minute, you have an awareness of you're in the dream, but you also have an awareness that you're laying in bed at the same time. So
Okay.
you have this like parallel awareness that's going on.
Okay.
And it's like, so you're in two places at the same time.
Yeah.
You're kind of in bed asleep, and you know that you're asleep, but also something like, it's like lighting up a Christmas tree, the lights will start coming on and you're like, okay, like I'm aware of something else. Something else is happening now. And Kyle already has that. He's already established that awareness. So, when I first became aware of it, he handed me a playing card, and it was the Ace of Spades. And he sort of handed it to me to say, well, here you are, Mum. And I'm just in the dream, ambling around in a dream. And, as you do, it's a bit like wearing roller skates for the first time, and you're all over the place. Well, that's how we dream, don't we? We're like bouncing in and out of different dreams, and then we wake up and go back to sleep again. Well, when you lucid dream, you have autonomy over the dream. And so he handed me the card, and I was just like, oh, okay. And then he took it off me, and then he folded the card up, and then he tore pieces of paper off the card. Then he gave it back to me and opened it up, and then he opened it up and he put his eye through like that.
Yeah.
That was when I knew we were doing something odd in the dream. I thought, what? Like, why? This is a card. Now it's something else. And now he's something even different. And then it was like, wake up. And that was my first time I had ever experienced. In my memory, I might have lucid dreamt when I was really young. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I had enough awareness to wake myself up in the dream.
So he told you to wake up.
Wake up. Yes. Yeah. Wake up.
Okay.
And I was like, just wake up. And I was like, and it was like a body feeling. It's like my body woke up. And we call that yes, it's called the dreaming body. And when you go deeper into lucid dream work, but my dreaming body woke up. All of a sudden it was like, oh, hang on a minute. Now I know I'm having a dream, but I know I'm laying in my bed at the same time. Rather than normally when we go to sleep, we forget about our body in the bed.
Yes.
And you remember it when you wake up. You think, oh, that was just a dream. Oh, that was just a dream. And you just disregard it that way. But this wasn't. This was like, no, you wake up, Mum, because here there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. There's a whole field of information and awareness that you can keep cultivating.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And, it bit by bit, our night times became very interesting and lucid and informative.
Mm-hmm.
And I, once I could stabilize the dream. It's very hard to stabilize a lucid dream until you learn how to, because sometimes.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So stabilizing it, meaning that, that you can continue to dream without thinking, oh my God, I'm having a lucid dream. And then you wake up.
Wake up and distracted. Okay.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's an odd feeling, it's an odd sensation to be lucid and move around in a dream and command, I'm going to go through that door, or I'm going to change the dream. And I've had a few dreams of me and Kyle on top, right at the top of a tree, and we might not even be human. We could have been like monkey or something, like we're an animal, but we're kind of swinging from tree to tree. And I'm like, wow, we can do this in dreams, can't we? He was like, yeah, like, we can do this in dreams, and I'm like, so I'm not quite sure what we were. We could, I felt we were like maybe a monkey, or maybe a squirrel or something. I don't know. But, animals that live in tops of trees and see the world from the tops of the trees. I mean, we don't see the world from tops of trees unless we're, maybe flying on an aeroplane or something, and we can see that. But, and it was like this feeling of flying and knowing that I was fully aware with Kyle in the dream. And so that it's all started back when he was about 11.
Okay.
Yeah. And, if I really want to understand him, if I feel that I'm not, connecting with him in the day, there could be lots going on. We're very busy doing other projects and things. And, yeah, so if I'm full, you know, or I'm kind of, yeah, I'm not paying attention, then, you know, he will come to me in the night and say, Mum, you know, I want to tell you this, or I've got some more ideas about another song.
Mm-hmm.
He came to me about, well, I don't know, a good few days ago now, nearly a week ago, about we were on top of a hill.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, we're on top of a hill. And he was like, yeah. And then I said, well, is this like the hill? And because I don't know what the hill's like, you know, and because I don't have that skill as such to go there during the day, in my waking day, it's all 9 times through dreams. And
Yeah.
he said, yeah, this is the hill. And I said, well, what is the hill? Like, what is it? And he said,
Mhm.
it's space. And I said, like, okay, what does that mean? Like space? How do you mean? Like you have space here? And he said, yeah, it's there's not the congestion of thoughts aren't here. So
Okay.
we come here because we have space. And,
Okay.
and I was like, so the day, like, you know, like the normal day,
Mm-hmm.
is that too full? Is that? And he said, yeah, it's too full. So these places enable me. He didn't talk about the we. He did speak of the we, meaning himself, I guess.
Okay.
Where I have space here, and I know that that is a thing because. And then I woke up. I just ran out of dream and attention, you know, and I couldn't
Yeah.
carry on asking him. But I was like, okay, like, and I tried to feel that during the day. I call it dream bridging, where you still get a sense of the dream and the dream's still running. It's a bit like, you know, when you have all your windows on your computer and they're still running
Yeah.
until you've closed them down. So
Okay.
I can still feel the dream running. He's still in the dream, you know, operating.
Okay.
And 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 I was like trying to retrieve that information in my body to go, okay, like I need to somehow embody what that space really feels like in dream time.
Yeah.
Um, and because that's, you know, Kyle goes there, he not only goes there at night, he goes there during the day in the dream and awake state,
Mm-hmm.
which where he has more space. There's more
Mm-hmm.
space for him to be more expansive and in flow state, I guess. So yeah, so I sort of percolated that, you know, during the day,
Yeah.
and and sort of said, do you want to write a song about it, Carl? Shall we write a song? I just speak with him like I'm with speaking with you, Nicole, you know.
Okay.
And then sometimes I try to send that as a message to him, and I'm a bit clunky in that way because it's almost like, yeah, it's almost like stop, you know, like, Mum, you're trying too hard. You've just got to keep the space, like the channel open.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we started to write some words down between us, and he's looking at me like, I said, are these the kind of words? Do you like these words, Kyle? And he looks, and he kind of goes like that, as if to say,
Yeah.
yes, okay. His body sort of goes, yeah. He doesn't say yes, but he kind of like, it's almost like there's an alignment
Okay.
taking place. And then if he doesn't like what I've written, and I've got involved, and my ego or my interpretation or my
Yeah, you're
identity,
trying
whatever,
to be like, that doesn't sound
yeah,
right.
he gets a dysregulate or just gets up and walks away as if to say,
Okay.
you've unplugged again. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I'll sit back with this, and I'll see if I can feel anything else coming from you that,
Mm-hmm.
that's a shared field that we're
Okay.
sharing. So it's not just coming from him. We're meeting somehow, and we're
Yeah.
sharing that. And it's
Okay.
this,
So
and this
this
meeting
is
is it's a very bodied feeling of like, yeah, it's almost like it's in my body.
mhm. So this is happening while you guys are both awake, right?
Mhm.
So it's not in vivid dreams anymore. So that's when you're doing the
The bridging the
dream
dream. Yeah,
bridging.
yeah, yeah. Or dream bridging. Yeah, so it's like a very physical kind of feeling of connectedness.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm in that place, Nicole, because my mind is completely quiet. So,
Okay.
you know, I'm going to, maybe it's a bit like meditation, you know, when you go into a meditation and you manage to quieten everything down, but it's more, it's like an instant knowing that you're in this field. There's,
Okay.
there's like an instant, yeah, alignment and an awareness that goes with it. And
Yeah.
when I'm in that place, I know that I don't need to force anything or make something happen. It's just, you know, Kyle and I are just like then fused.
Mhm.
And then if I can stay in that place for some time, then that's when, yeah, we sit down, and because Kyle can write, you know, and he can read. He doesn't always understand the typical comprehension of what, you know, so if you read a newspaper, you could read all the words, but he might not necessarily know what all that news article was about. So the comprehension there. But with music, it's a very felt experience for him.
Yeah.
And when we write, you know, and some people have written songs for us. It's not always us writing everything.
Okay.
But we do write a lot, you know, and some of the songs we get down the studio and record them, and some of them we don't. So, but when we do, it's a unified field of connection. And I know that we, you know, we're in a waking dream state then. And I said, it's the one I'm least skilled at. I'm better off at nighttime lucid dreaming with him. That's where I can stay the longest and have the longest amount of, you know, interaction and awareness of it, you know.
So when he's giving you lyrics for his music, so that's happening only when you're in an awakened dream, or also in a vivid dream at night?
Yeah, so if we're having a lucid dream at night, he will give me song lyrics. Yeah, so we'll be having a dream, and it will be what I call a dream theme. So there will be a theme, like the hill.
Okay.
We'll be in a place, you know, and again, I don't know if it's the hill that the other guys are speaking of, but we were on a hill, and Kyle was showing me that we were up high, and it was a bit like the playing card. Where are you now, Mum?
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, we're on a hill, Kyle, and I'm not lucid at this point. I'm still, yes, we're on a hill, and he's like, Mum, you know, we're on a hill, and then he grabs my attention, and it's like, oh, we're on the hill, you know.
Okay.
And then I've got enough lucidity that I can pull in from that lucid dream awareness and say, well, what is the hill? What is it? You know, why are we here? What does it mean to be on the hill? Why'd you come here? And he said, I come here because of space. There's space here. And I thought, you know, if you go to a hill and you have a nice walk in the, yes, of course you have space, don't you? I mean, you know, you're one on the top of a hill, but it's not, he didn't mean it that way. He meant space energetically, that it's quieter. There's not many mind, you know, kind of, what's the word? You know, there's the blueprint's empty, you know, it's full of, you know, like microwaves almost, you know, like how our space is, you know, we don't even see what's going on in our space. You know, we fill it with talking, number one. Yeah, 100% we fill it with talking. You know, number two, there's like, you know, we've got all the electromagnetic, you know, fields of the microwave and of computers and, you know, mobile phones and all that type of thing going on, like the geopathic stress and stuff like that. And I'm no expert on it, but I mean, there's a lot of invisible stuff that we don't see. There's also the intentions of others. And that's one thing he's come to me again and again and again with, that, you know, it's easier to be in a dream state because you don't get the level of intention. So he doesn't take the intention of another person in a dream.
Okay.
You know, there's an interaction, but it's kind of less, it is what it is. It's not as, there's not so much unseenness going on. So that's what, for Kyle, that might be different for some of the other guys. But for Kyle, he said it's clearer here. You know, what you see is what you get in the dream. This is what's happening. There's no storyline, you know, underneath, no agenda underneath.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was thinking.
You get a clear flow of what is, and, you know, what you can interact with. You know, if you're going to jump, or if you're going to fly, or if you're going to be another little animal or something, or a bird, you know, that is what's happening. There's not this subtext going on, which fills the space in our physical world, in this narrow bandwidth, as of the first bandwidth. It's all of that stuff that is very difficult for people like Kyle, I believe. And well, I know I'm speaking for Kyle, I can't speak for others. I'm speaking for that is a difficult field to maneuver, because there's so many variables happening all at once.
So aside from communicating through lucid dreaming with you. Has he ever had any interest in any other means of communication?
Music, 100%.
Always
Yeah.
music. Yeah.
So that music, I kind of knew he was musical when he was young,
Yeah.
but he was such a live wire, and he was into everything and he wanted to explore everything. As I said earlier, I used to let him, explore lots of things.
Yeah.
He went horse riding and he loved swimming, and so he learned to swim, and he learned to ride a horse, and he would love to come down where we live now in Cornwall. He loved the beach, so he'd love to be, rock pooling with his brother and his sister and his cousins.
Yeah.
So he would join in his own unique way.
Yeah.
But and I think what happened was that my mum always said, because my mum was a musician, and I sung in bands when I was young and stuff. So I always liked music. His dad was a musical as well. But, Kyle wasn't showing any definitive, interest in music when he was younger. It's not like he picked up the violin and he started playing the violin.
Yeah.
He didn't do that. But when we moved to Cornwall, he was in his late teens when we moved to Cornwall. And we'd moved away from where he'd grown up, we'd been about 16 years. So he'd gone through all his schooling in Hampshire. And we moved here, and I enrolled him in college. It didn't really work out for him. And then a lovely lady said, I think Carl might be quite musical. And she said, have you noticed that? And I said, well, a bit, but, not necessarily. And she said, I think he might really do well with music therapy. And I said, oh, okay. So I phoned up the Music Therapy Trust here in Cornwall. And I said, would it be possible that somebody could come to the house and, work with Kyle? Because somebody felt that music would be a way for Kyle to really make his feelings and emotions understood. So anyway, a lovely lady came a few weeks later and started just allowing Kyle to sort of explore the instruments. And he picked up her keyboard, her little keyboard, and he's just started playing a couple of songs. And I think I was in the kitchen, and then she came through and she said, do you know that he can play the keyboard? And I was like, no. And she said, and he can sing, So he started singing, ironically, he started singing Dream, Dream, Dream. And he started playing the keyboard to that. And I know that it was one of the songs that my dad used to play in the car when he would take him out. So whether or not when he was having, granddad time, grandpa time, that he was just remembering, all of these experiences, and somehow they had catalogued in him, they'd logged somewhere in him.
Okay.
And then, from there, I mean, music therapy absolutely opened the doorway to Kyle musically. He just somehow stepped through that door and showed us that music was his medium. So it was his, way of weaving between the worlds, the world that he can go far out in dream time, and then musically he can be here in his body and enjoy this world. And that is what music has done. And I think it's not only been extremely, I don't know if I want to use the word healing, but I will say it has made him really know why he's here.
To open eyes, to open ears, there's more to life than what appears in front of you, or how you think that it should be, that it should be. You miss the name.
Yeah.
Is that he can share his far awayness through his voice. And he really does sing from the heart. People listen to him and they go, his voice does something to you. It's like he's singing from that heart resonant space. He's sharing what he experiences. He's sharing it through music and song. So and it also really helps regulate him So, if he's stressed, he will start to sing. He will get his keyboard or he'll get his laptop and he'll find something on karaoke or something, and he'll just his heart out, literally. He just sings away. And it's almost like, singing is the thing that stabilizes him in the physical world. But also, it's something in which both of us now can share. So I get joy of helping him write songs and going down the studio and recording them, and the process of Kyle writing something down, and going to the studio and having it, him singing in the recording studio, and having to orientate a music studio is quite a feat. You have to wear headphones and there's music coming through, and John, who he does music with, is incredible with him, and John demands a lot of Kyle. They say, no, we have to take that again, Kyle, you haven't quite got that right, the timing's out there. Kyle has to retake, do the same thing. Sometimes when it's not his command, it's somebody else's, and he sort of knows. It's like he knows he's doing it for autism.
So he's just really going with it because he knows there's a
he's in service to his kind and to humankind, and he knows that. One thing that I liked that you said was that is true too, is how he sings from his heart. I felt it when I listened to this song on the Telepathy Tapes, the one that they put on there, Listen. That has been my favorite song lately. And when I listen to it, I can feel his words. I don't know how to explain it, but whenever I recommend it to anybody, I'm just like, you'll feel it. You'll just feel it. What he's trying to tell you is coming from his heart.
Listen now and listen on. My silent voice, my words in song.
Even though it seems very straightforward, he is telling us to listen. What message is he trying to send with that song? Listen.
Yeah, well, that was our first kind of stream. I call it streamed song, meaning that I'd had a dream with him, and he was singing to me in dreams, and he was like performing. It was like he was on a stage, or he was singing in front of me and some other people, and I was like, wow, he wants to perform this. He wants to be witnessed, and that was the first thing, Nicole. I think he wanted to be seen. He wanted to be witnessed. It's like, if you're non-verbal, how are you seen? How do you make yourself known?
Yeah.
You've got to be doing something to a level that grabs people's attention.
Yes.
Because most of us are telling everybody how, like, we can do this and I can do that, and this is what I do for a job. And, we introduce our identity to everybody. But that doesn't happen if you're non-speaking. You're not introducing your identity. You're kind of just being in yourself, in your presence. But you're not going, hey, I'm Jack, or I'm James, or I'm Jill, or whatever. So it was like he was showing me in dreams that that I want people to listen, but just listen. Not I want people to listen without thinking or knowing that it's this or knowing that it's that, but to listen. It was all about just words take up too much of our time. If you listen, you know what's mine. It's in the song lyrics. And actually that was written, so he came to me in a dream. He gave me the theme of that, and when we first made it and took it down the studio, and John produced it, a lovely lady called Lucy Skye helped me write that, because she was working for the National Autistic Society at the time. Okay. So I kind of wanted it to be recognised as a signature song, really, for autism in many ways. So she did have some musical background, and she did help craft that. So it was a joint affair, that first song. The Beyond the Syntax album is all bar one or two, a completely Carl's creation, with a bit of help of me writing them and John shaping them for the studio and for a recording piece. But his message was to listen, to get people listening. Yeah. And I think he knows that it's his job to do it through music. Yeah. He also knows that, the other, other non-speakers that he communicates with, everyone has every person, every individual has their own unique way of bringing their message or their presence, their mission to our understanding, to bring it into our consciousness so we can witness them in what they're doing, and so I think that it was the beginnings of our songwriting. Even though we did an album of covers on, they were all Kyle's choices at the time, so he chose all of those songs. They're the ones he wanted to record, and then we put Just Listen on that first album. The Beyond the Syntax album is really, each song is the messages, all bar two, that Kyle gave me to say, Mum, I want to be able to say this. I want to be able to tell you, standing on solid ground is all about stimming and needing to rock to, stop the chaos, so, he can be in his lucid mind, his lucid dream, so, those songs aren't just songs, they're messages from Kyle, to convey to us, in a way he can't convey any other way other than through singing and music.
Yeah.
When it all gets too much, when changes are out of my grasp, I just stop and watch the world race by so fast.
After listening to the Telepathy Tapes, I went and tried to look for a Kyle that sings, because I didn't know any last names or anything, couldn't find it. And then after like 2 months or something, I then found somebody posted a video on Instagram of Kyle singing, and then they had his full name there. And that's when I went and looked, and then I found his songs on YouTube. So I saw the video of Listen.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't stop listening to it. Beautiful.
Yeah. So it's got a great great hook to it as well. So it's interesting because John, who we work with down the studio, I mean, he would hate me for saying this, I know, but he's almost telepathic with Kyle. He has this way of just helping us produce music, which is so spot on.
Yeah.
And you say, what do you think of that, Caroline? And I have a melody in my head sometimes, or I have a chord structure or a time signature.
Yeah.
But, he seems to be able to be in our field, and he's a guy, he's got his music studio, he's a bit rock and roll. But when he works with Kyle, he said, I've never worked with anybody with autism, especially nobody that actually speaks. But he has this way of breaking it all down and really knowing what Kyle can do and what Kyle can't do, and also push Kyle.
Yeah.
He kind of stretches him, and I'm like, oh, he's not going to like that, John,
Oh, but he knows.
But Kyle kind of looks at me to say, no, I can do that.
Yeah.
I know what he wants, Mum. He wants me to do that. And I'm like, okay. And I have to sort of step back from being all mumsy and looking after him, But and then John said, no, I want him to, stretch his voice or do that, or do that harmony. Like, there's a harmony. I want him to do that harmony. He can do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, so Kyle really becomes in himself.
Yeah.
Like, the autism almost disappears, dare I say, because something else happens where he totally knows who he is and in his purpose.
Wow.
And that there's this disseminating of the autistic characteristics, and if we go right back to the very beginning where the doctor said, it's a lifelong condition, this is what his life's going to be like, he's never really going to develop beyond the age of 6, and he's bit by bit building that box, ready to put that lid on. And that's the reason why I've never allowed that lid to go on.
Yep, absolutely. And just think about how he said he would never be able to, speak. He is communicating. And also think about how he sings, even though he is nonverbal. What you're saying about the autism, parts of his autism disseminating, is him being able to sing is a big part of that. He's coming into in his purpose. He's here for this, to be able to share it in this way.
Yes, he's coming into beingness.
Yeah.
We all want to come into beingness, don't we? We all want to know what our calling is, and our, why are we here? Why did we, why are we here? And you can say, well, we're here to continue the human race. Well, that might not be the same with somebody that's non-verbal, non-speaking, has a diagnosis of autism, has, whose body, if you have a physical body that finds it very hard to be here. So, that maybe that pathway is not available in the same way. It's not to say it's not available, but it might not be available in the same way. Mm-hmm. So, we all have purpose, all of us. Absolutely. And, I do believe each and every one of our non-speaking children, or, it might not just be the non-speakers, it just might be our children in general. If we take if we give them space and we take some time to really see them, and listen to them, just like in the song, you will know what's theirs, what is mine, what are they trying to tell us? And I think our job is to learn to listen, not beyond the words, beyond the dialogue, beyond the narrative, beyond what we've been taught, this is how life is, this is how it is in society, this is how one has to orientate. And when we start to learn to listen beyond that, then the world's going to be a very, different way in which we will experience that, and also in a way in which we will communicate it, communicate the world and it be communicated to us. So I just think that, we are, and as parents, I think, I'm sure I'm speaking for many of us, but we have a role to play in this too. And that is to create the environment for our children so they can fully come into that environment and fully be that environment.
Yes. I wanted you to talk a little bit about your work that you shared, that you do sort of bridging in between for parents to be able to connect with their children that are non-speakers. Can you please talk a little bit about that?
Well, I've worked with many families, or many, normally parents over the years in many different ways. So, so it's not just through dream telepathy, if you like, but, that is my stronghold now. And the more that Kyle and I do it, I feel I have, we have more to share. And it's about really when you do start dreaming with your children. And I think most parents I've spoken to have dreams with their children. They say, well, I dream that he speaks to me or she speaks to me in the dream. And our job is to try and wake up, or to try and pay attention, even if we're not fully lucid and fully awake. And even if we don't fully have that experience of like full lucidness, knowing that we're dreaming and, we're flying together or at the top of a tree or, singing on a stage together, really try to tune in and find out what it is that your child is showing you in a dream. And you might only get it for a few seconds, and it takes practice. Lucid dreaming is a plasticity of awareness. We have brain plasticity, and it's the same type of thing in dream time. You have to learn how to lay down that new level of awareness. It's like becoming, it's like a muscle. It's like, lucid dreaming is like an awareness muscle.
Okay.
The more that you learn it, the more you organize your life and simplify your life. Don't overdo stuff in the day. Trying to keep things empty, at least in the evening, so I always say get off tech, sort of not on your phone, or, maybe if you watch a movie, not something that's overstimulating, so something that's a bit calmer. Sometimes documentaries are okay because they're not too busy or not too overstimulating, but if you're watching a horror film, I don't watch stuff like that, but if you watch something that you've got loads of stress chemicals going on, I wouldn't recommend that. So just pay attention, and if you do have a dream with your child, then try to write it down when you wake up and go, oh, I dreamt with my little Jimmy or my little Sally and write down that dream, and then maybe look at that dream and see what that dream was trying to tell you, and then you can pull that awareness from the dream into this world.
Yeah.
And you might find that if you've met your child in that dream and they had a red balloon, they were holding a red balloon, go and get a red balloon, blow that red balloon up, and play balloon with your child, because they will know then at that point that you are trying to remember.
Okay.
And that's just like, that's just like one little tip. Yes, I do one-to-one sort of courses with people.
Yeah.
If people are interested.
Yes.
I do. But, and it's fun, and we're not trying to invade their world. We're trying to be in their world and let that be a shared place. That's their rules in that world. It's not what we want them to do. Like, you've got to eat your dinner, you've got to eat your green veg up and that type of thing. That's what we're trying to do in this world.
Yeah.
It's their rules in that world. It's what they're waiting for us to meet them.
Yeah.
And then Kyle knows when I'm aware, because he looks at me, or he sees me, and he's like, yeah, Mum's aware. Mum had a dream last night of me, and she's still aware of me, and he knows that, because we don't need to say anything. I don't need to do anything. He's totally compliant. I'm compliant to him. We're just in the flow. There's no tension or pressure. There's a knowingness that we've both shared something. Even if I lose that connection, Nicole, and I've got to go and do the ironing, or go to the, do my laundry, or go to the store, because we will have to do those things too.
So what advice would you give to parents of autistic kids who are struggling to, connect with their children, or that really have that desire to connect? I know you just kind of touched on something that would go along those lines, but what would be an advice for those families?
Yeah. Well, I think in the early stages, just try not to think that you're doing anything wrong. I think that is the most important thing. I think it's so easy to think that you're failing because you're looking at other parents and their children and seeing what they're achieving. So it can become, it can become very easy to go down that rabbit hole of that you're failing or you're not a good parent. And I think just try to listen and observe and try to empty out. Try not to have any, preconceived ideas of what you think your child should be doing. Let them explore, as long as they're safe. If they want to only eat beige things for a while, well, let them do that for a while, and then bit by bit introduce just one thing that they might like. So I think the basics, just the basic care needs of a child is just making sure that they're safe and warm and happy and loved. And try things like playing music in the background, or if that they have a thing that they really love, and it might be a favorite color, or I know one little boy I used to see, he loved tractors, and we live in the country, so lots of tractors come through past our front window, and he used to come to me, and I bought him a tractor, and it was the way that I could get him to play music with me. So the tractor was green, so I'd say, right, you can play your tractor, and then we're going to play that green note there, which was like a G, and he would play that G, and then we would play the green bell, which was a G, and then I learned that he didn't like anything in E, and of course you can play G and E together, so he didn't like that, so I had to find another note. So he liked C, so then we could create a harmonic, but it would always be through his tractor. It's like his tractor was the focal point, and then we would play music, just one instrument, even if it was to making just one sound. So just be observant, and try things. There's no wrong way of doing any of this. And, we are in a way, us parents are the ones that are sort of pioneering these new ways to understand children. I would say it's when the parent becomes the practitioner. And we are practitioners in what we do, and we're the experts on our children. So so just believe and trust. And I always say my final piece of advice is when you get it right, you will never tire.
Yes, that's true.
There will be no more, there won't be any fatigue when you know you've got it right, when you know that you're in that right alignment with your child, because it's an energy field, it's an energy expression, you know, and it's live and direct is what I call it.
Yeah.
And it's so, I know when I get it right, Nicole, I'm 60, and I still am very involved in Kyle's world, because it's alive. It's an alive field. It's an alive place to interchange, awareness and attention and conversation, and connection.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. It's been lovely talking with you.
Yes, it's been lovely. I'm so thankful for you being willing to share your story. It's very inspiring, and you shared a lot of things that I know parents will benefit from. And I'm just thankful that I was able to connect with you. And I wish you and Kyle the best in everything you are doing. If you are able to let Kyle know, he's doing an amazing job. He is inspiring so many through his music. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and he does know, I show him on YouTube, and he gets a lot of hits on TikTok. We do this thing called the road trip. And he gets a lot on TikTok when he's sat in it. He's like his singing teacher. We go out in the car, and his singing teacher sort of chooses a song. Yeah. We go to places, and he chooses songs that he wants to sing. And it's always like, we went out the other day and it was a sunny day, so he wanted to sing songs with sun, mentioned in them. Or if it's a rainy day, he would sing songs about rain. Or if he's happy, he would sing songs about being happy. So it's endearing, to drive around while he's singing in the back of the car.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for inviting me on, and allowing me to share Kyle and I's story with whoever connects with it. And we will keep singing, and Kyle will keep bringing me song lyrics, and we'll make them. Well, we've got a new album coming out probably the end of this year, and lots more other stuff that we're working on.
Awesome. That's amazing.